people that watch our videos. Welcome to Constant Science. I am Don from Explosions Incorporated. This week I am going to give kind of a recap because we missed a lot of stuff because Aaron and I were busy building a new website and filming a whole bunch of videos like our zombie video and our canon video and our music video. So if you want to click any of those links I just threw up here, feel free because they're pretty awesome and we put a lot of work into them and we're really proud of them. But we missed a lot of really important science stories, so I'm going to count down what we decided were kind of the top 6 coolest or maybe most significant science stories in the past couple of weeks, the things that we would have covered had we actually been available and not too busy to do it. Okay, so number 6. I'm only going to talk about this one very briefly because we're going to do full coverage. We're going to talk a lot about it here in about a week because less than a week from the day I am recording this video, New Horizons is actually going to get to its closest approach to Pluto, the closest approach anything has come to Pluto in the history of humankind. And it's taken some really cool pictures already, like this one and this one. And a couple of days ago there was a scare because it went into safe mode. It had a hiccup and it stopped working at all, but then it started working again, but it wasn't transmitting data, and it only took them about a day to get it all worked out again. And thank God, because after 9.5 years of travel out to Pluto, it would really suck if a week before it was supposed to hit, it just decided to up and stop working. But it's working now. All right, number 5. So more astronomy stuff on this one. The dwarf planet, former asteroid known as Ceres, was known to have like a bright shiny spot in the middle of one of its large craters, but as the Dawn spacecraft drew in for a closer approach around March and April, it saw there was actually a second spot, smaller one right next to the big one in the middle. And then when it got even closer, we have this picture here where you can clearly see that the spots are actually made of tiny little spots of spots. And we're not sure what in the world these are. It could be ice, it could be from volcanic activity. All we know is it's really much more reflective than the rest of the surface around it. But you know what it could be? Number 4. So you may have heard of this thing called Mars One, where a company was going to kind of almost crowdfund a reality show to send 100 people to Mars and set up a colony and then probably die horribly. And unsurprisingly, it turns out it's a scam. One of the finalists, a former NASA researcher named Joseph Roche, actually kind of came out and blew the lid off the whole thing. As hopeful as we were that this would happen, because people on Mars would be awesome, a lot of people, pretty much everyone I talked to that's a science nerd went, it doesn't seem very terribly likely. So of course what's happening is they don't have any money, and all of the contracts that they claim to have with aerospace organizations are pretty much non-existent. They have no actual plans to do anything. The interviews were like this Mickey Mouse process where they never actually met the people who were the finalists, and the finalists are asked to give a bunch of money to Mars One, and if they go and speak about Mars One anywhere, they're supposed to give like 75% of their honorarium to Mars One, because Mars One has no money, they have no plan, they have no technology, they have no idea what in the world they're going to do, which is probably for the best, because as much of a step as it would be to get to Mars, it probably wasn't going to work out very well in the first place. Number 3. Yeah, it's back! Except it never really left. The story that a lot of us heard as kids, and I remember this dinosaur documentary, this video I had on VHS when I was a kid, I watched it over and over again, and it repeated this story, that there was the Brontosaurus, and there was the Apatosaurus, and then a paleontologist went, oh, we put the wrong skull on the body, and it turns out that it was an Apatosaurus all along. That's not actually what happened. In reality, the Brontosaurus was reclassified as a species in the same genus as the Apatosaurus. The Brontosaurus never went away as its own thing, just more data came to light that made paleontologists think that instead of being its own species, it ought to be a species inside the Apatosaurus genus. It was always still there, however. Now, in a fantastic example of the way science works to kind of revise itself as, once again, more evidence comes to light, some new paleontological data has led paleontologists to once again reclassify Brontosaurus. They realized it isn't as closely related to the Apatosaurus as they thought, so it is once again its own genus and species. It never went away, just like dwarf planet Pluto. It only got reclassified and then re-reclassified. Number 2. This one may seem a little bit odd to people, but we thought it was pretty important because, kind of like Apatosaurus, it's a really good example of science being done right. But in this case, it had to get done wrong first. A few years back, there was a study done to see if simply talking to people about homosexuality and homosexuals could actually change their view on gay people and gay marriage and stuff like that. And the study, when it was published, showed these massive, highly significant gains in a long-term follow-up. So they went to talk to people, they basically canvassed neighborhoods and said, hey, what do you think about gay people? What about this? What about that? And then they followed up months later with a survey asking about their attitudes. And according to the paper, the attitudes just shot right through the roof. Now, in science, you never just take one study's word for it. You always try to replicate the results of a study to see if it was really working properly, if the data is actually any good. And a couple of grad students went to try to replicate this because they thought, this is amazing, this is really cool. If we can replicate this, what a great way to raise people's awareness and get them to stop being homophobic and stuff like that. And so they started to look into the data and things started to look a little bit fishy, and then they called up the company that was supposed to have run the data for the follow-up survey, and it turns out that they never heard of anything like that. And as it turns out, the entire original paper was this massive scientific fraud. Now, this happens from time to time, and people sometimes use examples of scientific fraud and go, see, science, it's stupid, it doesn't work, but it was caught. And you know, I can't say it always gets caught, because when it doesn't get caught, we don't actually know about it, but it gets caught pretty darn often. And in this case, this attempt at replication provided the self-correcting mechanism that science it's really its greatest strength. Mistakes were made by the researchers, not really mistakes, they actually kind of straight up lied about a whole bunch of crap, and further research showed that it was not in fact a good study. It was the worst kind of fraudulent study, and it exposed it, it corrected itself, and now we have a better understanding of what actually happened. This is science at its best, ladies and gentlemen. Science isn't just about finding cool stuff in space, though that's pretty important. Science isn't just about blowing stuff up, though that's also pretty important, at least to us. Science is about gathering evidence from the real world to further refine our understanding of it and correcting past misunderstandings. This was an excellent example of science in action. And the number one most important science story that we missed while we were away? Yep, this insect can fart its prey into a coma. It's called Lomamia latipennis, and Lomamia latipennis expels gases from its anus that act as kind of a stunning agent against the things that it's trying to attack. That's exactly what it sounds like. It uses weaponized flatulence, and for obvious reasons, this is clearly the most important science story of the last couple of months. If you weaponize your farts, can you fart somebody into a coma? Do you pass stun gas? No. But this bug does. And that's pretty cool. Well, thanks for watching our quick little countdown to some of the science stories we missed while we were away. I will be back, or Aaron will be back, or somebody will be back at some point in the next week or two with yet another episode of Constant Science. Once again, thanks for watching. I am Don with Explosions Incorporated. 'Cause I'm a man of constant science.
Hey, thanks for watching our videos. If you get some time, why don't you watch some more? You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter.